Under his arm was a 12-gauge sawed-off shotgun in a cardboard box. He's filled with nerves, but his anger was stronger. He checked in for a meeting with his mortgage broker that changed his life forever, where he'd take his broker hostage for 2 days, all broadcast live on television. He walked out of the building with his hostage wired to his shotgun, ready to fire with one wrong move.
Hey, hands, so this trigger gets pulled!
The man's name? Tony Charistis. The date is February 8, 1977, and to understand exactly what drove him to the offices of Meridian Mortgage in Indianapolis, we'll need to back up. Tony Charistis' life hadn't been easy, growing up working class, but it was simple. He lived in a modest apartment, owned a single car, and was known as a friend to many in his community.
I think a lot of people considered him to be a kind of good guy and had that family work ethic that put him squarely in the middle class.
He thought he was finally making moves after buying land with M.L. Hall of Meridian Mortgage. But over the years, Tony fell behind on his payments while believing that the company was cheating him out of the land he bought.
They set you up to try to take everything that you've got.
Were they a loan company or something, sir?
You goddamn right. Biggest devils there are.
After many tense meetings between the two, Tony decided he'd take matters into his own hands. What happened next captured the attention of America, turned Tony into a folk hero, and sent shivers down the spines of the elite across the country. Could they be next? Come back for part 2. Tony Charistis walked into Meridian Mortgage with a gun and a plan he'd been developing for weeks. He was there to demand justice after he felt deeply wronged by his mortgage broker, M.L. Hall. He entered the building with his sawed-off shotgun in a cardboard box, concealed from the receptionist to check in for his meeting.
Mr. Hall will be with you in just a moment.
Only problem? M.L. wasn't there. His son Richard was stepping in to take his place. Richard and Tony knew each other well. After years of tense meetings about the status of Tony's land, purchased with a loan from Meridian Mortgage, Tony believed that the Hall family was scamming him, so he'd enter the office and close the door for the start of a meeting that would change each of the men's lives forever.
Tony, what is this?
This here, Dick, is a dead man's wire. If you faint, stumble, or try to run, this will blow your head off.
Richard was trapped. He was tethered by a thin wire, wrapped tightly around his neck and attached to the trigger of Tony's gun. Just one wrong move, from himself, Tony, or from the police, and he'd be dead.
We were across the street and we saw Tony and Richard come out of the door with the shotguns strapped to Richard's neck.
As they walked through the streets of Indianapolis, onlookers reacted with panic while Detective Mike Grable tried to intervene.
I remember Dad saying he thought he was going to watch a man die in the streets that day.
Sticking to his plan, Tony commandeered a police car and drove Richard to his apartment building that he claimed was rigged with explosives.
If any of your men so much as step foot in my apartment, this whole place would be up in flames.
Over the next 2 days, law enforcement worked behind the scenes to try and save Richard and protect the residents of the building. Days of negotiations followed. Tony's demands were clear.
I want a written agreement from Meridian Mortgage and the county clerk's office. I want my debt forgiven, and I want to walk out of here a free man.
And most importantly, you getting this?
I want an apology.
But getting them wasn't so simple. ML wouldn't give in so easily, even with his son held hostage at gunpoint.
He has a gun to your neck, son. Why are we the ones apologizing?
He wanted his loan forgiven and he wanted to go free, just walk away like it was no big deal.
Everything changed when Tony demanded a live press conference where he'd take his grievances on air.
Turn the cameras on!
No one knew what would happen, with a loaded gun holding Richard and Tony together, and the city of Indianapolis watching. Come back for part 3. We interrupt this program to bring you a specially televised broadcast, and we guarantee you've never seen anything like it. On the night of February 10, 1977, a national television audience tuned in by force to what was both a press conference and an active hostage situation. Tony Charistis had held his mortgage broker captive for the past 2 days and was taking to the airwaves as a part of his demands.
I want it on all national channels.
This wasn't the first time throughout the ordeal that the media jumped in. By this point, the case was practically being live-streamed before camera phones, pre-social media. Everything from the first report of a hostage being taken to updates from law enforcement were on the air.
The whole thing turned into a national story. All of my video ended up on the CBS Evening News.
This was one of the first cases of a domestic active hostage situation being broadcast live on television, and Americans just couldn't get enough of it. By the time the press conference came around, we were in completely uncharted territory.
The live press conference was something no one had ever seen before. He was so wound up and so tight that you just were sure he was going to explode.
With the stakes this high, people wondered what would happen if the unthinkable happened. Would cameras keep rolling? Was it even ethical to broadcast this in the first place?
Do you have a plan if he pulls that trigger?
Pay the fine and watch the ratings roll in.
Millions of eyeballs watched this press conference, which concluded the nearly 72-hour ordeal, covered live and in color across the airwaves. And it would be far from the last time that violence and crime would capture public interest.
One of the concerns was if he fired the shotgun, it could easily hit a whole number of people.
Tony's case was the first example we have of the modern true crime appetite, planting its seed in the minds of America. Come back for part 4. When a case of injustice is so extreme, is turning to violence justified? Ask Tony Charistis and the legions of fans he attracted after kidnapping his mortgage broker. Tony's case is a timeless one. A little guy fighting back against an institution much more powerful than him. After he purchased land with the assistance of Meridian Mortgage, he grew suspicious that they were cheating him out of well-earned profits, paranoid that he'd lost his opportunity to rise up in society and elevate his class.
Saw something in that land that no one else did. And I paid my dues.
But those at the center of Meridian Mortgage, M.L. Hall and his son Richard, were already elevated beyond anything Tony dreamed of. Their fortune was vast, owning properties across Indianapolis, constantly searching for opportunities to find profit, all while vacationing in tropical lands.
Must be nice. I've never been on a vacation in my entire life.
But what mattered most to Tony in his fight back against the Halls wasn't really money. It was getting justice for the feeling that he was deeply wronged.
I think there are some who would applaud what Tony did. I mean, that would make him happy because in his mind, he was speaking for all the little guys.
It wasn't easy getting justice. Even with his son at gunpoint, ML was reluctant to admit any fault. His pride for his business took precedent over his humanity and fatherhood.
I'm not going to admit guilt to something I didn't do.
What if I shoot little pretty Dickie here in the face? What then, huh?
Well, I'll mourn the loss of one of my sons.
Retribution was at the core of Tony's actions. His fight seemed impossible because of the size of his enemy, but he still fought anyway. That was what inspired his supporters to empathize and even root for him.
He's a goddamn hero is what he is.
You could tell by his actions and his words that he truly felt like he was wronged.
See it all play out on screen when Dead Man's Wire hits theaters everywhere on January 16th.